Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What is going on? Welcome to The Last Hit. We've had ourselves an extended break of about 3 weeks there because we had Chinese New Year and then we've had a week of the LPL. And now I'm joined by Dagda and Lyric this time as our new guest on the show. Not a stranger to The Last Hit, but a stranger to this season of The Last Hit. As we're going to jump into some conversations. We're heading into week 7 now of the LPL. Guys, we're well beyond halfway through it. First off, I'll throw to you, Lyric, since it's your first time on the show this season. How are you doing, mate? How are you enjoying the LPL? Because we are blasting through it.
You know, there's definitely some downs, if we look at like V5, so that hurts me a little bit. But LPL overall, I think, is doing pretty good. We have 2 elite teams once again. Even though we're 7 weeks in, I still think we're actually just at the halfway point in games, which is also pretty scary, I think, as a caster, realizing that we still have like 50% of our series left.
Yeah. We got some super weekends coming up. We are beyond the halfway point because I was looking yesterday, but it's like only just. It depends which team you're looking at as well, because the amount of games each team is playing is not equal right now. It will be by the end of the season, but it is kind of skewed. Dags, how are you doing, mate? Welcome back to the show.
I'm good. I'm after waking myself up after that very early start yesterday. For anyone who doesn't know, I was up at 3:30 a.m. for that first game. Turns out being in Ireland and trying to work on China time is not ideal.
Yeah, it's kind of brutal. The call time is 3 hours before the broadcast starts for us. Yeah. So it's like plus 8 hours in the time zone and then also 3 hours extra.
But the worst thing is my mom and dad are like that wall right there. So me doing a tech test at like 4 a.m. where it's like, can you just yell for a second? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's just yell. It's not a good call.
I didn't know your parents were a wall. That's kind of crazy. Anyway, let's move on.
Explains a lot about
let's head into our first segment. And it's everyone's favorite. It's making its triumphant return. It's Guess the Player. Ding, 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 ding. So, Lyric, you haven't been on the show yet, so I'll explain the segment quickly. And for anyone that's just tuning in for the first time, I'm going to give you 3 clues, and you have to try and guess the player. If you can guess them on the first clue, you get 3 points, 2 points for the second clue, 1 point for the third clue. And if you can't guess it on the third clue, I'll be amazed because they should be really obvious third clues. So we'll do 3 different players, and basically I'll say a clue. You can each give me an answer, and then I'll confirm whether either of you are correct, and then we'll go through the clues. So, we'll start off with the first player. I nearly said the name of the player there. The first clue is that he's a Korean LPL player. So now you guys take a stab.
I mean,
there's a couple you can choose from on this one.
I was gonna say, I feel like there's a lot. I'm just gonna throw one out there. I'm just gonna go with the rookie.
Okay. Over to you, Dags.
I'll go Nuggery. We'll just fire them
You're
out.
both totally incorrect. You're both correct, but you're not correct on the player.
I was going to say, I'm definitely correct.
So, clue number 2, this player is also a world champion.
Oh, God.
Okay.
Do and be.
I'll go for the opposite. I'll go for the
Yeah,
shot.
I was gonna say.
Go for the opposite
We're
one.
50, we're 50-50. Oh,
Lyric got the answer.
I realized we could have both been wrong, right? It could have been Gimgoon.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Rookie. Oh, I guess you already guessed rookie.
He already guessed rookie, and I'd gone for Nuggery, so we're running low.
Okay, so Lyric, you get 2 points. So going to the second player. In 2020, this player was a rookie. So take a stab in the dark again.
After you dagged up.
I'll take a sip of my flowery coffee.
I'll go with Bin. I'll just fire at Bin to start it off.
Mine is the fan favorite Peng Peng Shun, otherwise known as the PP God.
Oh my god, he's nailed it. It's PP God. My second clue is going to be more popular with English-speaking fans than Chinese fans. And I feel like that one would have given it away.
Yeah, that would have been the giveaway.
All right, so Lyric is storming ahead at 5 points right now. It's actually impossible for Dagda to win the segment, but we'll still do number 3 because it's my favorite segment. And it's everyone's favorite segment. Or so I keep on propagating.
I'm just holding back. I want the guest to feel comfortable. I didn't want to push him too far.
Just ease him into it. Yeah, I see.
Thanks, man.
All right. Player number 3. This is a player that has been to Worlds multiple times.
Xiaohu, I'll go with. Yeah.
Lyric?
I will take Mako.
You're both incorrect. Idiots. Clue number 2. This guy has an infectious smile.
Lyric.
He hasn't been to Worlds multiple times. I'll take that as a yes.
Oh my god, this is ridiculously hard.
Look, I won't win points in the show, but I will points with Lyric. And who's the real winner here, you know?
The third clue is a good clue on this one, so just take a stab then. You've already won. You have nothing to lose.
Who's been to Worlds? Who's been to Worlds? Rookie. I'll go with Rookie again.
Okay, it's not Rookie. Clue number 3. Now, this is a great clue. I'm pleased with myself on this one. This player used to be a canine that used summoner spells. So this is a player that's been to Worlds multiple times, has an infectious smile, and he used to be a canine that used summoner spells. Think about the wording there. It's like a riddle.
I'm gonna say Uzi because he was the puppy. I don't know about the.
Okay.
He's a nice smile, I suppose.
Over to you, Lyric.
I don't have a better guess. I give up. I give up. I lose.
All right. The answer is Karsa, because he was a flash wolf. And he has the most infectious smile in the whole LPL, and he's been to Worlds countless times. All right, well, I'll take the points for that one, since nobody guessed it. So overall, Lyric is still the winner at 5 points. I'm going to give myself 3 redundant points.
So I get less than the person who wasn't even competing. I like it.
Exactly. All right, so with that was our Guess the Player segment. We've sated the fans on that one, because it's been a month since the last Guess the Player segment, and I know there was a lot of hearts being broken across the world because of that. So let's move on to our second segment, which is called Failures and Faves. Now, I'm going to ask each of you to give me a favorite team and a failure and a fave from the last couple of weeks. The last couple of weeks only includes 1 week, but who are your teams right now one that you're really pleased with, that you're excited about, that is climbing the standings, and one that's kind of disappointing to you right now? We'll start with you, Dagda, because you've done the segment before.
Yeah.
Give Lyric a little bit of thinking time. So let's go with the failure first, and then we'll end on the high note with the faves.
I think the failure for me is FPX. And not so much because of like Beichuan coming in or anything like that. I think Crisp had a really, really disappointing week. And I think that was the heartbreak for me. I don't think there was like, I don't know. There's obviously people are going to look towards all the jungle fiascos, but honestly, I think that the team as a whole really didn't even step up. And when you looked at some of the TPs Nuguri was using in their game against RNG, I was like, what in the name of God is going on? So, I don't know. I think FPX definitely for me were probably the most disappointing. And then in the upswing, I'm going to say LNG. I think LNG looked really good against V5. I like that they're kind of going back towards like the super snowbally bot lanes where Light and Iwandi are just going to go nuts and then they'll try and win the game through that. Now, whether it's going to keep going, probably not. But I thought it was just really fun to watch Light and Iwandi go nuts in the bottom lane against V5.
They're becoming one of my favorite bottom lanes, I think.
Yeah.
They're not like completely dominant in every matchup or anything like that, but when they look good, they look great.
Like, I'm not saying Iwandi is the best support, but Iwandi is my favorite support this year. Like, I just love watching this dude.
You just like Alistair players. That's all that
is. Yes, that is it.
I feel like for me, it's the same, but it's just Dro. But essentially, it's the same reasoning.
Yeah.
All right, Lyric, over to you. Give me a failure. Give me a fave. Let's talk through it.
This is gonna be rough. So my failure, I'm gonna go more holistically, right? Because I'm the guest on the show. I want to talk the whole split. Surprisingly, it is V5. I am so sad and disappointed with this team. I think their bot lane is performing atrociously. I think whether it is Trigger or Y4, it actually doesn't matter. It makes absolutely no difference. They're both about the same in lane, which is mediocre. They're losing to just about everyone. PP God this split has been completely shackled to lane, and again, him and Trigger or Y4 are losing it. I wonder if that's because of like shot calling dynamics or what other issues there could be. I think the meta is quickly falling out of their favor. We're getting into like Azir, Corki, Victor territory, and that's V5 aren't going to win if we're in that territory. We need the Zoes of the world. We need the Lucians. And, you know, I think Longxing, Weiwei, and Mole are actually all performing like decently well. Mole statistically is one of the best mid laners in the league this split still. Weiwei, I think, is performing well, but again, they were always a team, right, that were bot lane or bust. Even when they weren't ganking bot, right, they were invading with bot prio. So the fact that their bot lane's so abysmal that PP God has fallen off so much, I think this team We can talk about this later, but I actually don't have them in playoffs, so that's a big one for me.
And we will hit on that in a little bit. We'll hit on playoffs and what our expectations are. So to bounce off of that then and go on a more positive note, who is your fave then? Who's the team that is tickling your pickle, as it were?
This is the hard part. Like, my problem is I don't want to give the answer of EDG or RNG because I feel like everyone knows they're doing well. They're just doing well overall. And then when I look at the rest of the standings, there's no one. I'm not hyped for RA, who's on a 5-series win streak. I'm not hyped for JDG, who's on a 4-series win streak. I don't care that LNG just beat Victory 5. I still don't think they're going to do anything in playoffs. I was excited for IG, but then after them losing to Sunny, it's now completely gone. Like,
what about Top Esports? They look great.
You know,
they look like the back.
My problem is I'm excited for Top Esports in reasons that I can't explain with like analysis or good reasoning. I'm excited for Top Esports because I still expect them in playoffs to like randomly look at each other and be like, hey guys, can we start like really trying now? And then be like, oh, that sounds good. And then they're gonna switch it on and completely start dominating.
It's like there's two teams in the LPL that fall in that category. Top Esports and IG. You just like they transcend statistical analysis. They transcend logical reasoning, and they're just like sometimes they want to win, and so they shall. It's just like you can't really quantify that.
I guess the good thing about TS, right, is the fact that Jackie Love has been popping off in all their recent series, like just absolutely dominating, like has like 33% of his team's damage share, getting MVP every single game. That's a good thing if you're a TS man.
And it was still insane to me that up until, what was it, the FPX series, he hadn't died in lane before 15 minutes. Like, that is insane.
And then in that series, there was 2 skirmishes where he walks away on like 1 HP, like barely escapes, and then finally got taken down. Yeah, that was absolutely crazy. I do want to quickly hit on, you actually mentioned 2 of the teams already, Lyric, that I wanted to hit on before we move on from this segment, and that's JDG and Rare Atom. So let's talk through, because I think a lot of people that don't watch every single game of the LPL, they'll look at the standings and they'll see 4-win streak, 5-win streak in 5th and 6th place. Like, statistically, this looks great, right? But definitely in a lot of the series, it feels a little bit lackluster, and it feels like something there isn't quite working right. Something still... there's not that mojo. I don't look at these teams and think, this is a world-beating team, you know?
Yeah, when you look at... I mean, right, both teams are 4 and 5 win streak, respectively, and you look at them and you're like... Man, Rare Atom and JDG are both above Top Esports, LNG, IG, but I don't think they're better than any of those teams. I think both of them still have a ton of mistakes. You look at RA specifically, where every game they have to drag it out to like 40 to like 45 minutes and then just win off of like Fofo having a great skirmish, or maybe Cube's able to find a great Gnar ultimate. And then JDG is like, get picks early with Lumao roaming or bust. And that is it. There's no other win condition.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. When I look at JDG and I look at, like, they keep trying to go for these invades on bottom side, and I'm like, there's no lane priority. They don't know how to crash a wave. And then Kanavi just dies like 9 times out of 10. I'm like, what is going on with this team? I will say, though, like, I love Zoom. I think Zoom is still really performing on that team. Just how much space he can buy in team fights. So then JDG actually have really good opportunities in team fights to try and turn those games around is the reason that they're winning. But apart from that, I'm just like, I'm not convinced by these. And the same with RA. I'm kind of waiting for them to start dropping down the standings a little bit. I'm still not fully invested in this team, and I haven't really been since the get-go. I think I'm one of the few who hasn't bought into the hype. Maybe Lyric's the same. Yeah.
I actually did buy into the hype coming into the split. I mean, surprisingly, it wasn't even for this roster, right? Like, I actually preferred Ike's over Luyan, but every time I watch them play, and I feel like I've actually cast their last like 3 or 4 series, I am less and less impressed and more just disappointed.
I don't think I've actually casted Rare Atom this year. I
don't
think I've cast a single game of them.
I feel like I was very much about the hype train, and I have like this love-hate relationship with iBoy where I feel like his playstyle is relatable to me because I sometimes just completely run it down too. But the problem is the stakes are totally different, right? Because when I sometimes run it down, it's in a random Goldie US game. When he runs it down, it's in the LPL. That's not really equal. But yeah, I think that I maybe overestimated what this team could pull off.
They just need to can't bot. Just can't bot Munchables. If they can't bot, things can be better.
It's just the WE, right? Like iBoy and Jomung are kind of similar. It's like if you just play through them, it's really hard for them to int it because they should be fighting. So yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna move on from rare item. One last thing I just want to add, and I'm not even going to go to you guys on this one. I'm just going to tell everyone Suning are officially the best team in the LPL because IG beat EDG and then Suning beat IG. And by transit of property, Suning are now the best team in the LPL. So we move forward on that note. And I want to bring up the topic of FPX. And we lightly touched on this topic slightly earlier, but I just want to kind of jump into first impressions of Beichuan. On the topic of Tian, like obviously Bo, just to fill in context here, Bo is no longer going to be playing, at least for the time being. He's suspended because of match fixing shenanigans in the LDL, basically. So we don't have much more in the way of details on that, and I'm certainly not going to throw accusations around. But let's talk on the topics of Tian and on Beichuan. What are your guys' first impressions of Beichuan? Because we talked a little bit about Chris not having a great game, but let's actually hit up the jungle, because it felt to me like Beichuan in the two games had different levels of performance. It felt like, if I remember correctly, game one looked pretty great.
Oh, we've lost Munchables.
We have lost our hopes.
I'll kick it off while Munch sorts himself out. I think Beichuan, like, I liked him. I thought he looked pretty good. I was a bit worried for him coming in off of LDL, because when I looked, he was very much a solo queue player, right? Where he wasn't very much playing towards what the team needed. It was more like, hey, well, if I reset now, I'm actually going to have like an advantage that I can then use, and I can then put that into Lord skanking or whatever the hell it might be. But certainly it was very much a selfish playstyle. But when he came into, at least against their first game for FPX against Orangey, he actually looked pretty decent. He was playing towards not so much his own whims, but trying to obviously work with that bottom lane where he's able to turn around the first play coming in from way on the bot side of the map. But I think he was very much helped by by FPX.
I love how you put that, because like you said, like not by his own whims, right? Like kind of pulled to his team.
Yeah.
And I thought the same thing when you watch the way he's pathing, especially in that first game. He'll like start to walk back to do his wolves. And then, like, suddenly, when he's, like, pretty much there, gets called to go bot, walks back towards his wolves once again, then starts pathing towards the top side. You're just like, man, like, what is going on with FPX? What's the communication? What's the decision-making? But I think that was a very solid point.
Yeah, it was just, there was a couple of times where I was like, oh, okay. But to be fair, I also think he was helped out quite a bit. Like, there was so many times where I saw, like, Nuggery moving into the jungle or Doomby moving into the jungle to get wards to be like, hey, this is where Wei is. You know exactly where he is. Use that information. So I liked it, but I don't like, and I think it's a bit harsh for people because they're going to look at FPX and go, oh, well, it's Bo's fault. You know, no, Bo's not on the team. It's all a disaster. It's like, no, this game was on Crisp. Like, Crisp really did not have a good game, and especially looking towards Nuggery as well, as I said before, like the TPs down towards bot lane where I could see he was trying to go for a reset and then TP into the bot lane off of the reset advantage that he had, but it was just completely mistimed, and then as Crisp just getting caught out in weird places.
I have mixed feelings on Beichuan because it's like, I guess it depends on what are we relatively like comparing him to, right? Because if we're just doing it overall to like LPL junglers, I think he's pretty underwhelming, definitely below average. I was let down. If we're talking about, you know, he's a rookie who got called in last second, wasn't supposed to be here, then I think he was completely fine, because he has a lot of rookie mistakes where you can see, I definitely don't think he's the one choosing his jungle pathing from the discussion that me and Dagda just had. He's going all around the map. He's missing a lot of camps, but he's also not really having much of an impact. He does like basic things. He never bought a red ward, I remember, in that first game. There was one time where he even based for 2 amp tomes. I'm like, dude, why do you need 2 amp tomes? Just buy some control wards. But at the same time, I think his team fighting in that game was pretty decent. You know, he was on the Lily. It was looking good. I think it's solid when you're a rookie and you're not a detriment to your team. He might have even finished that first game without any deaths. I remember he was sitting on like 2-0 and 2 for a long time. And then game 2, he was on that Hecarim pick. I didn't think he did too well, but at the same time, for FPX, I don't like when you're drafting this like super hard scaling mid jungle, and then you have like Renekton top, Samira bot who had to leash, so now they're losing lane, and it's like, well, what does this team comp do together? So I don't feel like Beichuan was set up for success, and I feel like he kind of performed to expectations of a rookie in his situation. It was like okay level, it was average, room to grow, still a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, I think I agree with that assessment, and I will say the Amp Tomes over Control Awards, totally relatable.
Yeah,
But
I think just to add on to that as well, for like, don't forget, like, not only is this guy a rookie in the LPL that got called up last minute, this is his first year at LDL.
yeah,
Like, this guy,
This is his
like,
first year as a
he's played a
pro.
handful of games in LDL, and then they're like, cool, LPL you go. So, I like, at least for myself, that was kind of the expectation that I was looking at it with, whereas it was fairly tapered.
when you
like,
think about it, it's kind of like one of those situations in like an American teen movie, and there's some kid like about to go on the big stage, and he's way too young, and he's like sweating, and then it's like freeze frames as he looks at the camera, and it's like record scratch. You're probably wondering how I got here. It's like, that's him on the main roster of FPX stepping onto the stage. It's like 4 weeks into his pro career. All right, let's hit the big leagues on arguably the best team in the league. Like, okay, well.
And I think he was fairly like down the way with draft as well, wasn't he? Like, that's why he got the heck. It wasn't even like they're trying to
that second game?
prioritize with
Yeah, there was a
draft.
few
It was
bans
just-
towards him, yeah.
I was just like, okay, well, let's just leave him out to dry. So I think, like, with that in mind, as kind of Lyric was pointing out, like, I think with a tapered expectation, I think he will grow into FPX. Like, I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he'll like be a detriment to them. I think it's just this guy clearly needs time because he has zero clue how this team functions.
I do want to have a bit of a tangent in the sense of it's always scary to me when teams do this, which it's obviously understandable why FPX had to do this, but when you see teams throwing players before they're ready, and I even think back, there's even a lot of players I can't remember who got subbed in for a few games last year, like players like Mitsuki, where they'll get a few games, you can see they're clearly like in over their head, they'll get crushed, and then I just think, man, this guy's confidence is going to be down the drain for like forever. He's not going to want to come back on stage. He knows he's not ready, and it could stunt development so much. That's what I'm afraid of for Beichuan, but at the same time, again, I think to expectation level, he performed fine.
Mm-hmm. The one counter to that argument is this guy was a streamer before coming in, right? So he is the self-proclaimed best Echo in China. He also supposedly, this is all information I got from Dagda, so I'm just completely stealing his thunder on this. But at least I've said it, so now I'm giving you thunder, Dagda. But he was also, wasn't he? He claims that he was the first Echo jungle in China as well. Like,
Yeah.
This guy's got confidence.
So to give my thunder to someone else, Risa Cute Bunny Chew, I think is her Twitter handle, was actually the one who passed me on all this information. So she was saying, yeah, he has declared himself the first jungle Echo in China, and is why he's called the Echo King is that he's considered himself the best Echo in China. So definitely a very confident player anyway. So maybe taking him down a peg might actually be good in the grand scheme of the development place. But honestly, either way, like, I do agree with what Lyric's saying, where like tossing these guys in when they're not ready. Like, if he just got absolutely smacked, and it's Wei as well. Like, Wei's not a bad jungler. Like, Wei's one of my top 3 junglers in the league. So that was a dangerous place for him to be, where he could have just got absolutely smacked by RNG, and then it's just like, well, cool. Beichuan gets a bunch of hate on Twitter and Reddit and Weibo and every other thing, and from that point forward, you don't really want to be playing anymore on the stage.
Yeah, it's rough to be in this situation, but I'm hopeful for this FPX squad, like, because I feel like he did a good enough job that the rest of the team can pop off. Like, when you look at this squad, I still have faith that this is going to be a top team once they figure out some of that stuff, and maybe that comes in summer. We'll have to wait and see. But like, when you look at the team around him, and aside from that most recent series, how Crisp and LWX have been playing, like, I think the FPX still has a lot to look towards. But let's move on with the podcast, and let's move to the next topic, because this is a good topic. This is a fun one. It's time to talk predictions, gentlemen. Now, we're going to talk playoffs. We're going to talk who we think is going to be the spring champions and a few underneath. So I don't know how much you guys have written down on how many slots you've written down to predict. I'm not going to ask you to predict all 17 teams because that would be a little ridiculous. But there are 10 teams now in playoffs. So I think, assuming that you guys have written down enough teams, are you guys good to go through and place a 10-team list?
The only slot I'm actually undecided on is 10th, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, right? It's kind of insane, actually, how many teams there are that you need to put in the top 10, and it's like, wait a second, who do I exclude? Like, it's become very difficult.
I realized when I saw we were going to do this, for like those teams that are around 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, you need to start looking at schedule. You need to be like, hey, actually, who do they play? Because that's what's going to matter most.
I'm not gonna lie. I've done mine purely on emotion. So my list is just gonna be like throwing it against the wall and seeing if it sticks. I'm gonna leave the deep analysis to you guys. So let's start off at the bottom. Let's start in 10th place, and we'll work our way up to naming our champions. Or maybe we can name top 4 at the same time or something, so that there's no spoilers. But anyway, 10th place, and it breaks my heart to say this, but that's where I've put Suning. But they made it to playoffs, so that's better than where they're at in the standings right now. What about you guys? Who's in 10th for you?
Yeah, I've Sunied in the same spot as you. I'm not fully convinced by this team. It's been very, very messy. They just kind of do nothing and then bend over, like lay over. So I don't know. I'm just kind of not fully involved in this team.
So I'm in a close boat to you guys. So right now I was undecided on BLG and Suning. I looked at B5's schedule. I don't think B5 will do it. When you look at Suning and BLG, they have 2 teams that you should expect both of them to beat. And then BLG plays more top teams, but even when Suning has to play teams like V5 or RA, I still don't know if I imagine Suning beating those teams, you know? So I'm kind of being a fence sitter, but I'm going to lean towards BLG just to add a bit of spice.
I cannot believe you would say that. right to my face like that. Suning definitely going to be top 10. I was very close to putting them number 1, but I wasn't convinced, so I just added a 0 to the 1 instead. All right, up to 9th place then. And this one is another one that kind of breaks my heart to write. It's not WE before anyone jumps in there. I've got JDG in 9th. What about you guys? I'm not really feeling the JDG hype right now. What about you?
I totally understand that one, but for me, like a lot of these teams I think are in the same tier. And here I put RA, which is funny because it goes back to your question earlier where, hey, both of them aren't really that convincing right now.
Yeah. What about you, Dagda?
Yeah, I have BLG. I really hope that BLG can like make it happen, but I'm not certain on them. I like this is a team like this is kind of a purely emotional one. Is that like I want this team to do well. I think aiming is really, really good. But I'm not 100% on where they're gonna land.
Hey, cool
I
stat
don't have BLG top 10.
is Bew has the most solo kills and the most deaths in general in the whole league. He has both, the most solo kills and just the most deaths flat out.
I would consider that to be a negative stat more than anything else. But I think just to speed this up a little bit, I think let's do our 7 and 8 spots together, and we can talk basically bottom 4 of playoffs, and then I think that's going to be easier than trying to name every individual team. So my 7 through 10, I'll just do mine first, then we'll go through, and then we can discuss. So I've got in 7th place, which might be a bit surprising, LNG. Then I have RA, then JDG, then Suning. So let's go to you next, Dagda, and then we'll go to Lyric, and then we can discuss 7 through 10 is probably the better way.
So I've actually realized I've made a mistake on my one where I've actually done
Oh, no.
where I've done 11. So my 7 through 10 is actually it's RA, LNG, JDG, BLG. So I didn't actually have Suning making it into.
You know, funnily enough, my 7th through 10th are JDG, LNG, RA, and BLG. Analysts united.
Oh my goodness.
Let's go.
Yeah, the only difference is BLG versus Suning, but we're pretty much all on the exact same page. I think the general consensus is these teams are like, there is potential there. There's some moments of magic, but on a default average game, and especially in a best of 5, I don't feel like it's enough. And I think also just the teams above them, like this is such a stacked league. How do you decide between these teams? We have so many teams that on paper are exceptional. But this is the problem. I feel like this year we're getting a lot of teams that on paper are amazing, but it's not really translating that well to the Rift.
Yeah, but even when you look at like Suning, right? I mean, they have their moments. Like Angel sometimes on Azir can have these really, really cool moments.
They just 2-0 at IG.
Great. I know, and then it's just like, well, do it consistently.
I think
I want to see more of this.
The key thing is that in both games against IG, Angel got Azir. We already know Angel's great at Azir. This is just a fact of the LPL. Maybe ban Azir against Suning. I think that is just like or pick it,
To be fair, in that series, I also have an asterisk for the fact that IG are clearly drafting much differently than they were before, and it's like we have these all late scaling compositions.
Yeah.
Aphelios, Victor, Sion. It's like, man, does IG even know how to play this? And apparently they didn't.
Is the answer. Okay, let's do 5 and 6. Let's move up our power rankings, and then it's going to get into the spicy top 4. So I want to go last on this one because I feel like you guys may disagree with my 5 and 6. So I'm gonna throw you in the hot water this one, Dagda, then Lyric, and then I'm gonna go last. So what's your 5 and 6, mate?
5th is IG, 6th is WE.
Actually, not too far off. For me, 5 is WE, 6 is FPX.
All right, so I'm not as out there as you guys, or as I expected. Hang on. I said that wrong. I wasn't trying to say it right. Mine is 5 FPX, 6 IG, which is basically just saying, hey, remember regional finals?
I mean, we our average is all the same, right? Like one of us doesn't have each of those teams.
Yeah, exactly. So we're kind of aligned. And again, I think that these teams are really, really good. FPX especially, I'm like heartbroken.
Yeah,
I have to put them that low. Honestly, I was ready for them to be number 1. I was ready for that.
I haven't stepped off the hype train. Like I don't have FPX like crazy high, but like I'm still convinced that when I watched them against RNG, like game number 1, whatever was going on with like Beichuan coming into the team, like if Crisp hadn't got caught out in those situations, that was still FPX pretty much winning that game. So I still believe that they can fight with the guys that are the best in the league. And I think that as the split goes on and you get a little bit more time with Beichuan, I think he will start to grow and he will start to understand kind of his role in the team. And then they will still hit the upper brackets, I'll say, of the playoffs.
I'm not sold. It's actually sad because I'm in the same boat that Joe was, that in the sense that in their last 2 series with Bo, when I was finally like, man, I think this is probably the best team in LPL. Now he's gone.
I said they were going to win Worlds.
And again, I don't think it's just jungle issue like we're all pointing out. It seems like there's overall team dynamic issues. It's so weird when Chris was support gapping everyone before Lunar New Year, and then him and LWX, which I also don't think it's their fault, right? I think there are some other circumstances where, again, I remember in that game too against RNG where they had to leash RNG's bot lane, didn't, and then they need to be playing around bot side, but they have this scaling Hecarim in the jungle, and even Beichuan's not playing around it too well. There's a lot of factors, but point is, it's everything's playing a bit worse. I think maybe the outlier is Nuggery. It's kind of hard to judge him. Sure, his TPs were bad, but I think in terms of laning and team fighting, he's still there. But this team they're losing to circumstance, and they're also losing to the fact that I believe in potential, guys, which is why, when we get higher up in my standings, it makes much more sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I always talk about this topic. I feel like I bring it up too much. The mojo was so insane.
I agree.
With that FPX roster with Bo in there, it was oh my god, can they ever lose a game? I genuinely was I wasn't even just aboard the hype train. I was surfing on top of the hype train. The steam from the steam engine blowing through my nostrils. I was fully inhaling. Anyway, let's go to the top 4. I think maybe the best way to do this is go through our entire top 4 here and then argue.
I think we go 4th up, though. I think this makes it spicier.
Okay. So let's do 4 first then, and then So Dagda went first on the last one, so Lyric, you go first on this one.
My number 4
Who's
is
your number 4?
Invictus Gaming, because people might think that's crazy. I'm putting IG over WE
that is
in FPX, but still, it doesn't matter if Rookie's not playing too well right now. Actually playing, I'd say, pretty badly, especially in the mid game.
Terribly.
It doesn't matter if sometimes Puff doesn't pop off or Shun's a bit inconsistent or the Shy can't play tanks. None of that matters. What matters is when the clock is counting down. I trust the Shy is going to lock in Quinn. I trust Rookie's going to lock in Syndra, and we are going to pop off.
What about regionals? That's what everyone said in regional finals.
Yeah.
I predicted Rookie to win regional finals, not even IG, and they failed. It didn't happen. They didn't go to Worlds.
Before playoffs and then before regionals, both times, I predicted IG to win Worlds. I predicted IG to win Worlds both times. So I never get off that train, Munchables. Never.
Respectable. I appreciate the commitment. All right, I guess I'll go next. My number 4 is WE. I believe that this team will maintain their position. I don't think that this is an LPL winning team, but I do think that Shanks will be stable enough in that mid lane that the rest of the map can pop off. I think Breathe is like, I think he's hyped and he's still underrated. I think this guy is actually insane. I don't know if I'm just misremembering, but WE and Suning, have they played against each other yet? Because I really want to see Breathe against Bin. Yeah, no, it's week 8.
I think so, yeah.
Week 8, Suning versus WE. Make sure you guys at home are watching that one, because Bin versus Breathe, I cannot wait. Both of those guys just want to win 1v1, just want to dominate. So I'm so hyped for that one. But I think WE, if they play towards top side, and also if Jomung doesn't run it down, this team has mega potential.
Yeah, I just haven't bought into the Shank stonks. Like, I'm just not fully convinced.
He's had a couple of really good games.
You know, surprisingly, I go a different way. I actually am like on board with Shanks now. I just don't like their bot lane. And sure, they've actually performed well in their past like 2 series, but before that, they were getting absolutely destroyed by everyone.
The problem I have with Shanks is, like, I look towards like some of his teleport usage and stuff like that. I'm like, I would have preferred that you like held on to that, or maybe use it in a different manner, so then you could have like pushed the advantage, like where he's got a teleport advantage, and you can use that to gain more. And then I look at some of his team fights. I'm like, especially on Oriana's, I'm like, his ball positioning is off. The shockwaves haven't been that great. I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just not seeing it for Shanks. I want this guy. I want him to do well. I want WE to do well, because like I think it's a really hype squad, but I'm just not convinced.
So the one thing I will say about Shanks that I think has changed the dynamic a bit for WE is, like, previously he was kind of just an Orianna one trick, and even then the Orianna didn't look that great. Now he's playing much more. He's playing the Azir, and he looked great on the Azir. We saw his Zoe is pretty great as well. So I think that the fact that they can't just ban Orianna and win the game by default is a very big positive for WE compared to maybe what the expectation was. But let's move up to number 3. So we had wait, did we do your number 4, Dagda?
No, mine is FPX. So I have FPX number 4.
Okay, Munchables.
So
we can just move on. We can just, roll the tape, as some would say.
Look,
all right.
I still believe. All right, it'll happen. It'll happen. Screw you guys.
We have covered IG.
Right.
We have covered IG. So, covered FPX. Sorry. So I had FPX in 5th, IG in 6th. So your guys' 4th place, I had lower than that one. Have you guys both mentioned WE? Does someone have WE higher than 4th?
I had them lower. I had them 5th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
6th.
And Dagda, you've already mentioned IG as well. So all of the same teams have already been mentioned.
Oh God, we have the same top 3.
We have the same top 3. So now it's just a matter of ordering. So in 3rd place, let's go around the table.
Can I just start this off by saying we're all brainwashed by top esports?
Yes, you can. It's impossible not to believe in this team. It's not even tangible. It's just pure mojo. It's pure mojo. They're like witch doctors.
It's the vibes, dude. It's the vibes. I feel it.
It is the vibes. LPL is based solely on vibes. All right, Dagda, I'm going to go to you again because I don't want to say my 3rd first, and I'm the host, so I get to decide. So, Dagda, who's your number 3?
It's throwing me in hot water. I'm going to put EDG in 3rd.
Actually,
you're
not hot water, because I just want to quickly say, I agree with you. Go on.
I also have them in 3rd.
Oh my God. We have
They're not giving enough vibes. They're on any vibes.
We have the same 3, 2, and 1, I feel like. Oh God.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's justify EDG in 3rd first, because I think a lot of people at home will be surprised by that, especially that all of us are there.
Excuse me. But yeah, I like EDG. I think Flandre looks absolutely fantastic. I think Viper's amazing. But that's the thing, is just like, they're fundamentally a really, really good team. And I echo Lyric's made this point a lot. And I literally haven't cast EDG this split. So I haven't got to say that I agree with them. So on podcast, I agree with Lyric that there's just no magic for EDG. I never feel like, if something goes wrong, they've got that clutch potential. They've got that star power on their team. And they have really, really, really good players. But nothing that I kind of go, yeah, that's the guy in... If the cards are down, he's going to be the one who's going to show up. And I think that's what's missing from this team. And even their playstyle is very much hey, we do the the fundamentals and the basics really, really well. Our team fights are really good. Our objective setup is really good, but there's not the craziness that I want to see that's going to make the difference there.
And I think when we're putting EDG in third, right, the most important thing is comparing them to the two teams above them. Obviously, we'll save order for a second, but comparing them to RNG and TS, I mean, we've all said we're brainwashed by TS. TS just has like the star power. They have the story.
Yeah.
They have everything that just makes you believe they'll do it again. And for RNG, I think RNG is a smarter team than EDG. I really like the way that RNG plays around sides. I really like the way RNG plays around vision. RNG are a more aggressive team than EDG. They have more draft flexibility. There's a lot of things that I think in the long run RNG will punish. But like Dagda's saying, and since he's agreeing with me, I'm agreeing with him, agreeing with me. EDG's fundamentally sound. They're just not beating RNG in top esports.
Yeah, I think the one caveat to the conversation of like clutch factor on EDG is Viper. I think Viper does have that clutch factor. The problem though is not Viper. I think Viper's great. I think he's an exceptional player, maybe the best AD carry in the league. I think that's a very easy argument to make. But when you compare that clutch factor to like Jackie Love and Gala, they both have clutch factor. They both can pop off and win a fight. Like it's not like only EDG has that factor, and so I think that factor is diminished significantly. And then when you compare the rest of the lineups as well, I think that there is.
I do want to add to that though that I at least think like pound for pound, just as the caveat, right? EDG are definitely a better like team of players than RNG. I think 100%. Like I think when you go player for player, they're definitely more skilled. But I just the way they play the game again, it's very standard. It's a lot slower. They're the most slowest game times in the LPL, and I just don't see that winning.
To bring up another lyricism that you actually talked about before is if you look at the teams that have won Worlds, there's always they excel at something. Like, they're always really good, and it tends to be the meta shift. Like, look at Damwon from last year, right? This was the perfect team to play this style of League of Legends. Like, focus around Canyon, incredibly spirit jungler, and try and play this style. And you look back in the years past, it's still a very similar story. And that's the biggest problem that I have with EDG is that, like, they don't excel. They're like they're a jack of all trades, and they're very, very good. But I don't look and go, oh yeah, if the meta shifts to this, that's when they win Worlds. That's when they push into the upper echelons. Whereas I feel like when I look at RNG or I look at top esports, I can see a world where, hey, if the meta swings and we're playing that style, they will just take over. And I think that's what's missing from EDG.
The one extra thing I do just want to add to the conversation of EDG before we move on is that when you look at the way that they like to play the game, it is kind of a slow, calculated, methodical style of gameplay. The meta is very much shifting towards slow, methodical gameplay, right? We've got Azir Corki mids. We've got scaling AD carries that want 4 items. We've got top laners that scale into the late game like Gangplank. Even we're going towards like tankier junglers. We're still playing a lot of carry junglers right now, but I would not be surprised if things like Sejuani become way more prevalent and it's all about the setup. So it wouldn't surprise me if the meta does start to favor them at least a little bit. But I mean, again, that remains to be seen. That's pure speculation. So let's move on to number 2. And I'll be the one to. Oh, I guess we might as well say 2 and 1 at the same time, right? Because it's all the same thing. I'll be the first one to just get it out there. I am entirely brainwashed. I believe the top esports will still win this split. They are currently in 7th place, but I believe that they will win the Spring LPL. And RNG will be in 2nd place. And it will be a banger 5-game final between these two teams. We'll go clockwise. So Dagda, you go second, then Lyric, you go
Okay, I'm actually not fully on the bandwagon. I have top esports in 2nd, and I have RNG in 1st. Okay. So I think for me the difference is Wei. Wei is my favorite player of this split. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. I think Ming and Gala being able to play as strong as they do when they get so little resources given to them is amazing. I love how smart Ming is on the map as well in those early stages where like he'll read, hey look, if this wave top crashes in, Xiao who's going to potentially get dove, he's going to lose a bunch of CS, we could potentially lose the game off this, and you'll see him like wander up towards top side to make sure that Xiao is able to take the wave and they're not losing stuff. I think RNG are just really sound when it comes to understanding what their team composition does and how it can abuse their opponent's style, but also then what their opponent is trying to do and counteracting that. All
right, Lyric, where are you at?
So
cast the deciding vote.
I want to preface this by saying I 100% truly think EDG and RNG are both better teams than Top Esports. But
Oh no!
I am
Oh,
with
no.
Munchables. Top Esports are winning this split. It's not deep. It's not deep. It's just gonna happen. It's not deep
The
rooted.
vibes.
The mojo. It's not deep rooted in too much analysis. I honestly just think we are gonna get to a place where, and I'm also saying this right, coming from working like a team side background, I do actually believe like intangibles and the human factor are very real, even against what I think the community sentiment wants to like fight against a lot these days. I really do think players can like get in the zone, get in like a comfortable space when they do well under pressure.
Yeah.
I think players like Top Esports, of course, can do that. And it's not going to come down to like beating RNG on the map. It's not going to come down to drafts. It's not going to come down to any of that stuff. I think we're going to get into game. I think they're going to like get their comfort champions and they are going to lane kingdom everywhere. The only question mark for me is 369, but I think the other two lanes will comfortably lane kingdom. I truly believe.
I think 369 will pick it up again as well. I just want to add one quick thing before I give it to you, Dagda, because I know you want to argue against some of that.
No. I just had a joke just saying that like I feel like I'm the one that's in the corner. You know that meme, and it's like yous are both vibing to Top Esports and you're dancing, and I'm just the guy in the corner saying RNG are gonna win. Right?
They don't know about RNG's wins. I just want to add on that with the concept of like the human factor, right? And these vibes, this mojo that we're talking about. I want to give that some credence because I feel like we are kind of just sipping the Kool-Aid right now and we're all on board, but I don't know if it like translates correctly. I just want to point out in the last like 3 or 4 years of League of Legends, all of the very best teams have had this intangible like magic to them, right? When you think even the Korean teams, even Damwon, there's like this vibe with that team. They're all fantastic mates. They're all having fun in the games. And like their League of Legends is obviously exceptional, but also like they're mocking G2 pretending to throw Ghost into the pool, right? There's still like that flair to the team, which for a Korean team is really crazy. The only other team that fits in that category for Korea is Rox Tigers, right? Or at least in my mind. But then you think about the best teams in Europe, it's G2. It's nothing but flair on G2, you know? And even Fnatic is starting to fall in that sort of same category. And then in the LPL, FPX and IG, both very much a ton of flair, a ton of that mojo. So I think that it's an underestimated factor because you can't really measure it. It's not statistical. It's not really quantifiable. But I do think that team atmosphere breeds champions.
I do also think there are like two, not really, like there are two more tangible things you can look at when you can get that from a team. And I think one is when a majority of the players or just the team itself have already competed with the best in their role and have been in the conversation for best in their role, which Top Esports has. So that's why no matter if they're 7th right now, it's not hard to imagine them first. And then the second quality I think is having shown that they can do that under pressure, which, you know, they did that by obviously going 5 games in string split, winning Summer, winning MSC, and then even reverse sweeping Fnatic, despite the fact that, you know, that wasn't a semifinal or final. I still think that shows a tremendous amount of like discipline and just clutch factor that can be pointed out and been like, hey, this team has shown this before. I don't think it's wrong to be able to point to that and say, hey, they can do it again.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, but they're not
Dagda,
even top of the table at the
Shoot us
moment.
down.
They're not even high at the table at the moment. They're still losing games. So what do you mean, huh? They're not even up there yet. I don't know.
They won their most recent game. In fact,
Yeah,
their
I
most
mean,
recent 2 games.
I think there's like, I do agree with you to a certain extent. I don't want to fully be like, oh yeah, let's all just jump on with Top Esports. It's like, I don't know, you're going back to the guy who's like hurt you before, and it's just like, yeah, I know it's gonna do it again. I know it's gonna happen. I'm gonna get my heart.
I do want to
broken,
add. I do think me and Munchables are the crazy ones. I do think you're actually being the reasonable one. But
Yeah, I agree.
A funny like stat on
I do. Yeah, I feel like the friend who's trying to tell you not to go back to the bad relationship. I feel like that's what's happening here. Yeah.
To be fair, actually, in terms of individual game win rate, Top Esports is actually 4th. They're actually over WE, JDG, and Rare Atom. So in terms of games, Dagda, in terms of games, they're up there.
Just a little asterisk.
Just believe.
I don't know.
The one thing I will say is I don't feel like it's that hard to believe in Top Esports because they have only lost 3 games. They've only played 8, so they still have half of their.
I mean,
split
look,
remaining,
I'm
but
arguing
also...
that they're second, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
like
yeah.
No. Sorry, I'm not just trying to just trying to straight up argue with you. I'm
You
just
try to
like,
convince yourself. I got it.
exactly, yeah. I'm trying to justify my own ridiculousness. But one of the things I will say is, like, even when you look at their performance last year, right? They were super hyped. They won MSC, and then they made it to the semi-finals in the World Championship. That was the first time that Knight ever even went to Worlds. Like, sure, they didn't just dominate the world like everyone wanted them to, but they still made semi-finals. They're still actually a respectable placing. And also, they lost to Suning, which were like the super underdog that had like this insane tournament. Maybe the best tournament that organization will ever have, right? So I would say that in those circumstances, and obviously, I don't want to be too much of an apologist, they did kind of shit the bed during that semi-final. I don't know if I could swear on this podcast, but I guess I have.
One way to find out.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't think that the narrative across the world should be as negative about top esports as it has been the last few months, where it's like, oh, they disappointed, they're no longer good. I think this is still just an insane team, and especially Joel. Joel is fit into this team so beautifully. Like, they just want to go in, and Joel's like, "Oh, go in. That's my middle name."
I honestly feel like he fits in too well to where he will go in a lot of like he will lead the charge first, and it's like, man, this is such a bad angle to engage or a bad time to engage. But you know, the rest of TS are like, "Oh, we're going in. Let's go, boys."
Dude, I'll go in. It's like watching top esports play is like watching the lads on a Friday night, and one of them goes, you know, I could do a beer, and someone else is like, yo, it's only 2 p.m, but it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. Yeah. And then like the idea spreads like a plague through the room, and then suddenly everyone's pissed drunk at 4 p.m. That's top esports in a nutshell. Dagda, any final thoughts that you want to like? Give us a bit of a hype up on the team that you believe in.
Yeah, I genuinely think the reason I'm not fully bought in is I think that like what I've seen from top esports is their bot lane is unreal. Like, don't get me wrong, like the laning phase for Jackie Love and Joe has been great. I just don't think that like in straight up, I think Gal and Ming have been almost as good. I don't think you're just going to straight up lane Kingdom down there, especially with the amount of resource or lack of resource that they've been getting. And then looking at Wei, I think Wei has been so good at just with smart jungle pathing being able to get into places where I don't think Karsa will be able to stop him. Because when you think of top esports, right, it's like Karsa trying to control everything that's going on the map. I think Wei's going to be able to go and match him toe to toe. And I think the biggest weakness for top esports is 369 in the top lane. And I think when you're able to play so heavily as RNG through Xiaohu, trying to get him set up, looking for the split pushing, trying to like, I like when RNG, like, they're able to get these long lanes and then unlock Xiaohu to start moving towards mid and playing very smart League of Legends. And I think that the RNG are a team that will punish, that you just said, is these like crazy engages that come through. Like, we saw RNG punish WE really well exactly when they did that. WE tried to go for these crazy engages, and RNG were like, cool, we'll just get Xiaohu to TP in behind you. You got this Gragas, big ass cast that comes in, just absolutely tears them asunder. And these are the kind of things where I think, hey, look, if there's a team that's going to punish top esports, I feel like it's RNG.
Maybe JDG comes back.
Let me also add that even my prediction of top esports, right, was predicated on me saying top esports will lane Kingdom RNG. I actually think if top esports don't find a way to get ahead early, and again, we're talking, right, like over a month away, then yeah, it will be tough to win. But I expect them to go back to what worked in 2020, put you know the camping tent right outside of 369's lane, and to just mow forward.
Can I just say how nutty the draft is going to be for that series? Because like you've got this like Gragas pick that goes in 4 lanes right now. You're looking at like, because Xiaohu has got all these weird flex champions as well in the top lane. You're like, I don't know, maybe we just get Orianna and Syndra back in the top lane for no goddamn reason. Like, there's so many things that can happen within that draft and all this flexibility that it's just going to be like trying to figure out like some weird puzzle as you go into
real quick. I'm really sad that we can't see all 3 of those teams, you know, like potentially play against each other, because that's what I want. I want to see all 3 EDG,
well, actually,
TS, and...
we might. It's double elim now. So
You're right. You're right.
That we do see all 3 matchups. It's actually very possible. So that is super hype. This is why I was so excited about the playoffs format. Anyway,
Can I just put an F in the chat for old FPX that I believe would have been at the top?
I know. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. Okay, let's move on to the next topic because we are almost out of time here. We've got a 60-minute timer and we've got 4 minutes left of that. So last topic, and this one's just, I just want to throw this in there because someone was asking me on Twitter the other day and I was like, that's actually an interesting thought conversation. Where do you guys put the top LEC teams in the LPL? So your G2s, Fnatic's, Rogue. Where do they sit for you guys? Because I think it's a really interesting topic, especially teams like G2 and Fnatic who have very much a similar playstyle right now to what we see in the LPL. And I think Rogue can definitely step up in that category as well, especially this split they've leveled up in the more aggressive regard. So where do you guys put them? Because I think it's a really interesting conversation.
I'll just go first because my answer won't be long because I don't watch too much LEC these days. But so my answer is going to be more about our LPL teams that I would expect the top LEC teams to be able to at least place like top 4. Because, again, right now our 5th team is JDG, 6 is RA. I don't really have a lot of faith in these guys. I still think our teams like RNG, EDG, Top Esports, like we talked about, even WE will be able to at least go even or beat them. But every team under that, I wouldn't be surprised if G2, Rogue, Fnatic came in and just started smacking them.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I actually probably have them I think that like EDG, RNG, FPX, and Top Esports, I think are kind of the ones where I'm like, they'll probably be able to beat them and take over there. But the rest of the teams, honestly, I see that you'd end up with like G2 certainly being super high and probably contesting for those top 4 spots. Looking at Fnatic, probably a little bit lower. Rogue, I think, are looking really, really good, but I wouldn't be as convinced about Rogue. I think Rogue do look very strong, but I think certainly when you look at like G2, the caliber of their players should be able to keep up. And I feel like that's the biggest difference is like LPL is willing to skill check you a lot more often than LEC is. And it's a case of like, how well do you keep up with that super fast pace? So I think G2 will be able to. I think Fnatic with like Whippo, Hilly, and Upset, like willing to just opt into that skill check, I think is going to be great. I'm just less convinced that Rogue will be willing to play that kind of chaotic stuff.
I also want to add that I just think our middle of the table in LPL this split is actually abysmal. I think it's so much worse in 2020. Like looking in 2020 summer, our like top 7 or 8 was all like really good and respectable, and I don't feel that same way right now.
I think that the big thing is the LPL on paper is absolutely stacked, but we have so many teams that are just not performing to the level that you expect from these players. So I definitely agree with that. I would say that like our top 2, if FPX was still performing, I think they would be above. But right now, I think RNG and EDG sit above. And like with Top Esports in 7th place, it's really hard to say right now if those 2 teams are in this league that Top Esports would be above them because they're not above teams like, RA. So it's kind of hard to say that they're above G2.
TS and IG get an asterisk that you just never know. You just never know.
And Suning, apparently, who just beat IG out of the blue. All right, well, with that is going to round out our episode. We're all still sticking to our guns that the LPL's the best and that the top 2 stay, but we're saying that they would slot in towards the top of the table. With that said, though, that's going to round out the episode. So I've been Munchables. I'm joined by Dagda and Lyric. Any final thoughts that you guys want to impart on the audience as we move into week 7 of the LPL and towards playoffs?
I actually have something really quick and really important. Is that V5 will come back, Vance. They'll come back in summer. They'll win Worlds. Year of the Mole will be added to the Zodiac. And Munch and Dagda, thank you for having me on. It was super fun.
Thank you for joining us, Dagda.
I don't have any. I feel like I need to give an impassioned speech, so I'm just going to give it about Iwandi. I love Iwandi. Iwandi will be a top support. Let's get this man into a team where he's able to show off.
G2 Iwandi.
Other than that, I've got like take 2 for my flights this week, so hopefully that'll go a little bit better. So you may be seeing a little bit less of me for a while, but I'll still be fanning out and I'll still be in the chat and trying to keep up with stuff. So.
Go follow him on Twitter. He'll still be tweeting. All right. We're going to round out the episode. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching or listening. And we'll see you guys next week.